Welcome to America in Motion, where we explore how policy shifts, technology, innovation, and geopolitics are reshaping the future of business in the United States. Understanding how these areas intersect and thinking holistically can help your business get ahead. This is how you can own your next move. This is America in Motion.
Welcome to America in Motion, where we explore how policy shifts, tech, innovation, and geopolitics are reshaping the future of the United States. I'm Carla DeSantis, a partner at PwC, and today I'm coming to you from the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas. Here at our PwC lounge before it opens, and there's a lot of energy and excitement at this event as we all think about what's next in tech and innovation. Our focus on America in Motion is simple. We look at how the U.S. is reinventing itself through tech, resilience, and bold leadership. And yesterday, that story came to life in a powerful way in a recent session on the next industrial era, U.S. reinvention through tech and resilience. To help us unpack the key takeaways from that session to our viewers now, I'm joined by our global energy and industrial leader and also the host of that session, Ryan Hawk. Welcome, Ryan.
Good morning.
Ryan, for those that didn't attend the session, let's step back and give them a quick snapshot. What is the industrial era and what's happening there?
Basically, the reinvention, or however we want to term it, of the next U.S. industrial revolution is basically the premise that there's a tremendous amount of optimism out in the system, whether it's tech, innovation, geopolitics, policy shifts, et cetera. A lot of things are happening all at the same time. Those forces coming together at the same time is what's causing, that level of optimism and the progress that we're seeing in the next industrial revolution here in the U.S.
Yeah. So researchers say we're not preparing for it, we're actually in it.
That's
what are
right.
some of the key highlights to signal that?
I think there's always a risk that people view this as another cycle,
That's right.
And another
That's
hype
right.
cycle, especially with all of the buzz around tech and AI
Totally.
is the thing. However, when we did the research project over the course of the summer, the magnitude of the responses, both on the magnitude of the change as well as the pace of change, indicates that this is not just another cycle, that we're actually in the middle of the next industrial revolution. I think more and more the realization that what's good for industrials, industrial might brings prosperity and security, actually causes people to think about what's happening within their own country. And there was this great statistic that came out of the research that it was something like 8 out of 10 executives believe that overdependence on offshoring is going to be an existential crisis here within the next 5 years. And so there's much more of a focus on getting supply chains to be both about cost, capability, proximity, rather than just a function of cost out, as it's typically been in the past, or at least within our lifetimes.
So you mentioned offshoring. Let's go back to that for a second. Let's talk about nearshoring or onshoring. How is it different now, or how we're talking about it now versus, say, 2 or 3 years ago?
So I think, again, I come back to that cost and capability point. I think 2 or 3 years ago, the focus was more so on cost versus cost and capability, and you said the term, and I love it, which is better control over that. I also think there's things are happening so fast with respect to innovation, robotics, physical AI, so on and so forth, that the opportunity to do things closer to home is there like it's never been
way
there.
more viable.
And
totally.
it's one of those things where in the past that wasn't necessarily the case, right? I needed to solve the cost equation first, or I didn't have a business. But now I can solve the cost equation, I can solve the capability equation. I can do so relatively quickly. The research was fascinating because the magnitude of the change that people expected was tremendous, but it was even more amazing when you looked at the time frame that the executives in the study said that the change was going to occur. Most of the change is going to occur in the next now 4 years, right? We're in 2026. They're saying it's going to occur by 2030. So it is a massive shift that is happening in a very, very short amount of time.
Oh, it's amazing. So, okay, so we can't have a conversation about capabilities or anything without talking about AI.
Yes.
So let's talk about AI. How does that play into this whole paradigm?
So I think the shift that we're seeing, at least in energy and industrials, is moving away from maybe the overdependence on a ton of AI use cases to drive productivity that you may or may not see actual benefit in, and really targeted use of AI towards real business outcomes. And over the course of the fall and a number of executive conversations, this concept of the best plant operator ever kept coming up. And what we mean by that is leveraging AI to know every production statistic, know every quality statistic, know every maintenance record and engineering spec, et cetera, in order to make decisions very quickly.
Right.
And that's a use case around AI that I think blows people away, right? You know, we're used to thinking about AI as solving for small tasks. This is solving for, you know, massive issues within a manufacturing environment or whether in an industrial environment. And so that use of AI, I think, is going to be bigger and bigger, more important problems. I think we're going to get out of the individual use cases and into, you know, actual business value.
Oh, 100%. And that, yet in that discussion you had yesterday, the idea was it's a whole digitization of the value chain.
That's
It's
right.
not just points of it.
That's
and
right.
that is new and different.
It is, and we've always talked about end-to-end value chains, right?
Right.
But we say end-to-end value chains, and then we start to think about, you know, the individual buckets, the individual
Functions,
silos,
whatever.
And what I love about the evolution of AI and the way that it seems to be manifesting itself in energy and industrials is that we're now actually able to stitch those individual pieces of that end-to-end value chain that we used to talk about together all at once and, you know, solve bigger problems.
So we've got to talk about, if we are talking about all these things, capabilities, evolution, technology, particularly AI, workforce.
Yes.
Let's talk about how that is changing. What is the definition of workforce?
I think my simple definition of workforce would be anything that touches the people, the human capital, whether that's back office, front office, manufacturing, shop floor, warehouses, et cetera. I think there's a lot of concern out there that it's going to be replacement versus augmentation.
Right.
I'm in the camp of it's going to be augmentation. The point was made yesterday, and I thought it was a brilliant point about it's actually could be getting people to do the jobs that they intended to do anyway, but they haven't been able to do because they're too busy fixing the data or reconciling things, et cetera. And so I think this is a big opportunity for everybody to be able to level up. Yes, probably do the jobs that they thought they were signing up for to begin with, do them in a safer way for sure. So I think it's a great thing for workforce overall, but it is a lot to manage, right? And we said yesterday that the rules were being rewritten around it, and I think that is an understatement.
So for those that are struggling to figure out whether it is any one of these topics to start or finding their way navigating through them, do you have a piece of advice for them or a two?
I was gonna say it's probably more of a two, but things have never moved as fast as they're moving now. And so I think there's two things, right? There's the one that I think everybody would expect anybody to say, which is, and everybody said yesterday, which is, how fast can we go? So my advice would be similar. It's act now, don't delay. But I think there's another one too that comes out in the research, and it came out in the panel yesterday, which is this idea of prosperity and abundance, right? There's a level of optimism out there. And so, you know, don't be skeptical. Don't focus on the scarcity. Focus on the opportunity, the prosperity, the abundance, and go after it.
Yeah, we talk a lot too about being proactive, viewing this as an offensive play, not a defensive play.
That's right.
Right? And obviously, we all want the ball, so we want to play
That's
offense.
right. That's right.
So, Ryan, we talked about energy being a driver of independence. What are companies doing to make sure that they are addressing that or achieving that?
Yeah, I think most of it right now is realizing that energy isn't just a commodity and an input. It's now much more of a strategic input, right? It's actually a point of collaboration, between energy companies and industrial companies. And so energy resilience, I think, runs the gambit of everything from understanding the charging network necessary for EVs and how that impacts grid modernization, all the way through to how manufacturing companies or industrial companies are leveraging the grid, the power base, et cetera. And there's this great mutual dependence, right, of power companies needing to make it affordable and available, but also, working with the industrial side to, on the consumption, on leveraging backup power to put it back on the grid, et cetera. And so now you're seeing, I think, much more of a codependence, and a strategic partnership, if you will, versus I get power, I get oil and gas, and it is what it is, and I pay the price I pay. It is now much more of a strategic asset.
Throwing energy back onto the grid isn't a new concept. A lot of companies figure out how to harness all of that. It's a cost of waste that they've converted on. This is about elevating how you can show up as a business, right?
Show up as a business within, the area of the country that you operate in. And it's not a new concept, but it also isn't necessarily something that is done routinely. And so I think you're going to see a lot more of that going forward. I think industrial companies are going to have much more of a stake, a concern in what the energy companies are doing, and vice versa. And in the fall, there was a great quote that a CEO of a power and utility made of, "We're open for business," and it's great. That's because it goes back to the idea that things are moving quickly, that we need to have some level of optimism.
Ryan, thank you for breaking down such a transformative conversation. It's clear that the next industrial era isn't just emerging, it's accelerating. And the choice leaders make today shape our competitive landscape for years to come. Thank you for watching us here at CES for America in Motion. We'll continue bringing you insights on what's next for business, from policy changes, geopolitical shifts, to AI and energy resilience.